Hey y'all, I'm Lena Bond and welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I'm going to get straight into the headlines today because there is a developing story we need to talk about. So very on Hurts, Jalen Hurts' father just recently sat down for an exclusive interview with Bleacher Report, and he said that if Jalen Hurts does not win the starting quarterback position come this fall, he is out. So I'm going to read some quotes from you from the interview. He said this about the situation. He told Jalen, "You effed up. You opened the door and you put yourself in this situation. Now it's up to you to dig yourself out." He also said Coach Saban's job is to do what's best for his team, and I have no problem with that. My job is to do what's best for Jalen. And make no mistake, Jalen is a quarterback and he wants to play quarterback. He loves Alabama, he loves Coach Saban and everything about that place, but he wants to play and he will play. He also shook his head in the interview and said, well, and if he doesn't play, what happens after that? He would be the biggest free agent in college football history. So guys, with this report coming out, I have to bring up the question, what do you make of Jalen's dad's comments? Obviously, it was a threat of some sort if he's not QB1, and with Tua Tagovailoa in and out of spring practice and injuring his hand, it definitely makes his quarterback situation in Tuscaloosa very, very juicy. So get those comments in and let me know what you think. Moving on to Tagovailoa, I just talked about him, and he just recently had a major setback in his recovery. We know he had a hand injury earlier this spring, and now it looks like he may have had some surgery. So on Monday, Tagovailoa posted a photo on his Instagram story, presumably with his left hand in a cast, and it also appears he underwent some sort of procedure. And on the picture, you can see he's also sitting in a wheelchair, which would infer that he had some sort of outpatient surgery on his hand. And over the weekend, Nick Saban said Tagovailoa had suffered a, quote, setback with his hand, but didn't provide any further details. He did say, however, Tua would sit out for the rest of spring practice. Alabama has not had any further comments on his injury, but it definitely adds intrigue to the quarterback situation in Tuscaloosa. All right, let's get to some more lighthearted news, not as heavy as the first two headlines. Alabama did just recently nail in a four-star linebacker for the class of 2019. This kid is a total stud. His name is Shane Lee. Now, he's old teammates with Ayabi Onoma, which is a pretty good one, and he canceled his Ohio State spring break visit to commit to Alabama. So I think this guy is already shaping up to be a good one. He stands at 6 foot, 230 pounds, and he had tons of scholarship offers. Ohio State, Clemson, Florida State, LSU, Penn State, Michigan State, UCLA, just to name a few. He's a four-star prospect, and 24/7 Sports has him as a 61 overall prospect, the third best inside linebacker, and the #1 prospect coming out of the state of Maryland. In the 2018 class, Alabama stocked up on the outside linebacker position, but the shenanigans of Quay Walker led to a last-second scramble to get a true inside linebacker, and Bama only landed a 3-star in Jalen Moody. So as such, a commitment from a highly rated bowling ball such as Shane Lee is a good start to building future depth on that inside. All right, guys, let's get into our rumor portion of the Alabama Football Report. And the first rumor we have for you guys, Nick Saban, is he not a fan of this new kickoff rule that the NCAA is implementing? Well, this is a Bear Bryant hat. Roll Tide, it is a fact. So the NCAA Playing Rules Oversight Panel announced approval to alter the football kickoff rules, but Alabama's head coach Nick Saban is not a fan of it. He said, "I would have liked to see a different solution to the problem," Saban said in a press conference on Saturday. Now, I understand the reason, and I expect the reason, which is player safety. The new rule will allow the receiving team to fair catch a kickoff inside the 25-yard line and still have it result in a touchback. All other aspects of the kickoff play will remain the same. Furthering his point, Saban went on to say, "You sky kick, trying to give somebody bad field position, they fair catch the ball on the 15-yard line, and then they get the ball on the 25. To me, that takes some strategy out of the game." So this makes me bring up a reaction poll for you guys. Do you like this new kickoff rule? Give me a heart for yes, a like for no. Player safety obviously had a lot to do with it, but it does take a lot away from the strategy, like Coach Saban said. So I want to know your thoughts on the situation. All right, guys, second rumor we have for you. Hugh Freeze, he's almost Alabama's offensive coordinator in 2018. Well, we're giving this one 3 Bear Bryant hats. It's pretty likely. So Hugh Freeze, as we know, was just recently let go by Ole Miss, and he could have been the co-offensive coordinator in 2018, but SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey prevented the hire from coming to fruition. Now, this is according to a report from AL.com, who added Saban didn't learn about the extra hurdle he had to face in the league office until days after he met with Freeze in mid-January. Now, Freeze is one of the only few SEC coaches who has been able to defeat Saban twice since he arrived in Alabama in 2007. The others, Auburn's Gus Malzahn and former LSU coach Les Miles, have also competed for national championships, while Freeze struggled to reach that level. Still, Freeze was someone Saban really wanted to hire, but the new SEC bylaw gave the commissioner's office consolation power prior to Alabama offering Freeze a job. Freeze running Alabama's offense would have been something to behold, in my opinion. Ole Miss's attack under Freeze was always potent, and he could have brought a peak Lane Kiffin levels of offensive efficiency, or perhaps beyond that point in 2018, but it is what it is. All right, guys, before we get to my next rumor, I want to bring up my Bear Bryant scale for you. So 0 Bear Bryant hats, that's fake news, no accuracy behind the report. 1 Bear Bryant hat is Paul, shouting out Phyllis from Mulga. 2 Bear Bryant hats means people are talking. 3 Bear Bryant hats means more probable than not. And then 4 Bear Bryant hats, roll tide, it's fact, it is news. Let's get into my next rumor now. Calvin Ridley, former Alabama wide receiver, is he going to be replacing Dez Bryant for the Dallas Cowboys? Now, we're giving this one 2 Bear Bryant hats. People are talking. So just recently, it was talked about how Calvin Ridley could be the perfect replacement for Dez Bryant, who was just recently released by the Dallas Cowboys on Friday. This is coming from NFL.com's Lance Zierlein, and he said Ridley's the best wide receiver in the draft, and it's really not that close of a competition. He said some people question whether or not Ridley is big enough to be a wide receiver 1, but I think he'll be the latest in the new breed of top-end receivers such as Antonio Brown that lack a bit of size but are competent for the role. He's a guy on this list that stands out to me as being ready to contribute at a high level right away, and the Cowboys, of course, are doing their homework on him. And the Cowboys, who released Dez Bryant on Friday, currently have the number 19 overall pick in the 2018 draft, which will take place 26th in Dallas. So I want to bring up a weigh-in for you guys. Where would you like to see Calvin Ridley go in the 2018 draft? I'm not talking about number here. I'm talking about team. If you want to go to the Cowboys, let me know. Or anyone else, toss out that team name in comments. Let's get into our next rumor here on the Alabama Football Report, which is their number 1 recruit in the nation for 2019. Is he hot? Is he high on Alabama? Well, we're giving this one 3 Bear Bryant hats. It's pretty likely. So I'm talking about Kavon Thibodeaux, the nation's number 1 recruit, and he made his first visit to Alabama just last weekend. And honestly, it couldn't have gone any better for him and the Crimson Tide, as their chances of landing the 5-star Jack linebacker have gone up. So Thibodeaux admitted that before going to Tuscaloosa, he wasn't thinking much of Alabama because of the negative perception he had on the school, which is kind of odd. That thinking has changed after spending 2 days on campus. He stated, "It blew my mind, exceeded all of my expectations. I wasn't really too big on Alabama going into it, but they totally changed my mind. Before going, it just seemed like too much of a factory to me. They got the best guys. They didn't turn these guys into D1 prospects. They just got the best guys. But now seeing it in person, I see they pay better attention to every detail to make these guys better, and I want to be a part of that." Now, Thibodeaux called the time the team to beat in his recruitment, but it is still very early on. He's not planning to make a commitment until October at the very earliest. All right, next rumor I have for you guys. Did Alabama get a pledge from a 4-star DB? Well, I'm giving this one 4 Bear Bryant's hats. It's fact, it is news. So the kid I am talking about is 4-star cornerback Christian Williams out of Alabama. So he's 6'1", 182, and clocked at a 4.5 at the 40 time. 24/7 Sports ranks him as the 10th best cornerback in the nation and the 101st overall player in the country. Williams finished his junior season with 27 tackles, an interception, and a fumble recovery. And as a lifelong Crimson Tide fan, he saw no reason to put off the inevitable, taking to Twitter to say he wanted to play for the Crimson Tide. Williams chose the Crimson Tide over Auburn, LSU, Florida, and Tennessee, among others. All right, guys, last rumor I have for you is Alabama soaring in the recruiting ranks for the 2019 class. Well, I am happy to say this is a roll tide. 4 Bear Bryant hats for this one. It is a fact. So just this week, Alabama was outside the top 10. But after Tuesday night's commitments from 4-star linebacker Shane Lee, the Crimson Tide now sits at number 4. Just days away from hosting A-Day, its marquee recruiting event of the spring. And who's going to be at A-Day, you ask? Well, the list goes on. There's going to be 3 5-star 2019 prospects, 22 4-star prospects, and a handful of elite talent from the class of 2020.